Hello everyone and welcome to a new video dedicated to our beloved Snoopy and the world of Peanuts. Today we analyze the strip published on November 11th, 1950, a small masterpiece of sharp dialogue and character interactions. In this scene we find Shermy, Patty, and Charlie Brown in a moment that explores jealousies, rivalries, and sensitivities. Shermy tries to mask her annoyance when Patty seems to prefer Charlie Brown, but the result is an explosion of emotions reflecting very human dynamics. Through this short sequence, Schulz gives us a wry but profound portrait of social relationships, and today we will analyze each vignette to catch references, trivia, and Schulz's incredible storytelling ability. Let's get started. In the first vignette, the scene opens with Shermy addressing Patty with a phrase of apparent indifference. "What do I care if you go to the show with Charlie Brown?" Shermy is visibly defensive, which suggests that, in fact, she is far from indifferent. Her body posture and serious expression betray her true state of mind, a mix of jealousy and resentment. This vignette highlights Schulz's ability to capture complex emotions with few strokes and essential dialogue. Although Shermy is not as central a character in the Peanuts as Charlie Brown will be, his role in the early strips was often that of a rival or more mature figure. But here we see him in a more vulnerable light. Moreover, this is one of the rare times Schulz hints at romantic situations, albeit very innocently and never explicitly. In the second vignette, Shermy reiterates his alleged disinterest with a decisive exclamation, "Go ahead. That doesn't bother me." Shermy's attitude seems forced, almost theatrical, as if he is trying to convince not only Patty, but also himself. Patty watches him calmly, while Charlie Brown already seems confused and on the verge of an emotional reaction. Here Schulz shows the classic human behavior of denial, a theme that will recur often in the Peanuts. Shermy tries to hide her true feelings, a trait that anticipates the emotional complexity of Schulz's characters. This vignette could also be read as a lighthearted depiction of rivalry between friends, a universal theme that anyone can recognize. In these early strips, the characters were still developing. Patty, for example, did not yet have the dominant personality that Lucy would have, and Shermy was a more prominent figure than in later years. The dynamic between Shermy and Charlie Brown here suggests an implicit competition for Patty's attention, something we will rarely see in later strips. In the third vignette, Patty takes control of the conversation, confronting Shermy with a direct and accusatory phrase. "Look what you've done, you've hurt Charlie Brown's feelings." As Shermy approaches, apparently surprised, Charlie Brown is visibly upset, with a bowed head and a pained expression. Patty stands as a protective figure for Charlie Brown, showing empathy and sensitivity. This scene is an early example of the recurring theme of Charlie Brown's emotional fragility. Schulz often uses the character to portray insecurities and the desire for approval. Patty, on the other hand, stands out here as an empathetic figure, a role that would later be more often associated with Linus. Anecdote: the early Peanuts strips show a different side of Patty than the Peppermint Patty that would appear in later years. The original Patty was closer to the concept of a traditional 1950s child, often polite but able to take a strong stand, as we see here. In the fourth vignette, the scene closes with Shermy trying to justify herself in response to Patty. "He thought he was giving you some good competition." The sentence only makes the situation worse, leaving Charlie Brown even sadder. Shermy seems unable to comprehend the emotional damage she has caused, while Patty maintains an air of disapproval. Shermy's sentence is particularly interesting because it introduces the concept of competitions in a social context. Schulz seems to suggest that even in the simplest relationships, such as those between children, there are dynamics of competition for affection and approval. This theme will be explored more fully in later years, especially through the relationship between Charlie Brown and Lucy. Although Shermy rarely appears in the most famous strips, her character represents an important starting point for the construction of the Peanuts world. Here we see, precisely, an example of her initial role as Charlie Brown's antagonist, a trait that will be lost as new characters such as Lucy and Schroeder enter the scene. This November 11th, 1950 strip is a perfect example of Charles Schulz's mastery of capturing human emotions and dynamics through simple dialogue and interactions. Each character, even in its graphic simplicity, conveys a universal message. Competition, jealousy, and the desire for approval are part of our nature, even in the most mundane moments. How do you interpret it? Let us know down in the comments. Thank you for following us on this journey into the world of Peanuts, full of trivia and insights.
If you enjoyed yourselves, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and activate the little bell to stay updated, and see you next friends.